Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews presented by Quantum Podcasts. As always, I will be your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movies and TV. Well, we jump back into the MCU with another Disney Plus series, Loki, seasons 1 and 2. Yes, we're going to do both seasons on here. I thought about splitting it up into two different episodes, but I figured why not just lump them all together and have a giant Loki episode. So we're going to talk about those two seasons. Before we get into that, we're going to go over one reaction on a film that just came out this weekend. Super excited to talk about it. It'll be a spoiler-free reaction because we'll do an entire episode on it next week. A couple of reminders before we jump into that, though. Today, you can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast service. We are around the world, so whichever platform you deem worthy to listen to the podcast, we are on there. Also, check out the social media pages on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Post all the graphics from every episode, news, and other fun stuff on there. I just posted a couple of images from the Batman Part 2 set, as well as some of the posters for the upcoming films like Street Fighter. So check out those. You can also check out the official website of the movie podcast, cinematic-reviews.com. Set up a profile, go ahead and review movies like I do on the show with that ultimate popcorn scale. And you can also check out the episodes of the show as well, all the shorts and trivia games, so much stuff to do on there. So go ahead and check that out. Set up a profile and have some fun. So with that, let's jump into news and reactions. So Mortal Kombat 2 premiered in theaters just a couple of days ago, so I figured why not spend a few minutes to talk about it. I saw it 2 days ago, opening night in my hometown here. We will do an entire review episode dedicated to it, like I said, but I figured why not talk about it just for a few minutes in a spoiler-free atmosphere. So Mortal Kombat 2 is the sequel to I think it came out in 2021 during the pandemic era. Just kind of like the reboot, redo, reimagining of the Mortal Kombat franchise, of course, based on the popular video game that a lot of you have probably played, including myself. This sequel joins fan favorite characters like Johnny Cage, uh, Kitana, Jade, Sonya, Jax, Kano in this new tournament for the Battle of Earth. They go up against Shao Kahn, who is on the other side of the tournament trying to control Earth and every other realm out there. So our champions must recruit Johnny Cage, who is played by Carl Urban, who makes his debut in this new modern take on Mortal Kombat. Carl Urban was fantastic. He was the one that really attracted me to this movie. Not just the fact that it's a Mortal Kombat movie. I was going to watch it either way because I love a good video game movie. But Carl Urban being cast as Johnny Cage is what really got me excited about this movie. And he didn't disappoint. He was the movie. Not that, Katana and Jade and Jax were bad at by all means. All the characters had the correct amount of screen time. They were respected in their regard as far as like the video game versions into the movie. They did a really good job with the finishes and all that of everybody, especially Kung Lao. He was fantastic, and so was Liu Kang. Their fight in the movie against each other was one of the best fights, but Carl Urban stole the show for me, and probably for a lot of you as well. Johnny Cage is a character that people have been wanting to be included into this new retake of Mortal Kombat. It was rumored that he was going to be in the first one, but they decided against it because of his big personality, and it just didn't fit the vibe that they were going for in that first movie, which makes sense. Sequel is where you want to expand the world and just kind of have fun with it. And that's what it seemed like they did with Johnny Cage. He was kind of at the forefront of this movie. He was the entertainment factor. He was the humor factor. Along with Kano. Kano came in hot and ready with all his jokes and everything. But this was Carl Urban's movie, and he did a fantastic job at it. Kind of briefly looking at the box office so far, after just a couple of days in theaters, it looks like it is not up yet. So I'm going to do some quick research here on the pod. Box office for Mortal Kombat 2. Looks like it took in a few million. Let's see here. 40 million, it looks like, so far. Heavily. So it's going up against Devil Wears Prada 2, which I think it can overtake that one. I haven't seen that movie yet. But I feel like people are going to be leaning towards Mortal Kombat versus Devil Wears Prada 2 this weekend. So in Thursday night alone, it looks like it made about a little over 5 million in preview showings is what they call Thursday night now. But it looks like it's on track to make quite a hefty load here. I'm not really seeing a price here. About 40 million, it looks like Friday, maybe. Yeah, so it's hard to see. It's so early in the weekend that it's hard to tell what the box office is going to be or where it's at. But it looks like Thursday night for sure. It was just a little bit above $5 million just in Thursday previews. I know my theater here in town had like 2 or 3 showings. So that's not a whole lot of lot of room for it to be a monster night, but still a pretty solid night for Thursday night. And then we'll see what the review episode should come out probably next Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll get a better scope of what the overall weekend was with Mortal Kombat 2. But go ahead and check it out this weekend. Prep yourselves for the review episode. I'll be rewatching the first Mortal Kombat that came out in 2021 to just kind of get prepped for the Mortal Kombat 2 review episode. But go ahead and check it out this weekend at your local theater. It is awesome. I really enjoyed it. I will reveal I've already revealed the popcorn rating for it, and that was 5 popcorns. It just didn't quite get to the golden. I really wanted to give it golden, but I just couldn't quite get there. And I'll talk about that more on the review episode of why it didn't quite make it to the golden popcorn. But 5 popcorn buckets is really good for a video game film for sure. So, like I said, check out Mortal Kombat 2 this weekend in your theater near you and get ready for that review episode next week. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into our featured series of the day, Loki Seasons 1 and 2. This episode is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Still drinking energy that quits before you do? Stop crashing, stop shaking, and start performing. Meet Dubby Energy, clean energy made for gamers, creators, and anyone who refuses to slow down. With 0 sugar, no jitters, and no crash, Dubby keeps you locked in whether you're grinding ranked, streaming for hours, or pushing through those late nights. There's no crash, no fade, just gas. Drink different, perform better. Grab Dubby Energy and use code Cinematic10 to get 10% off your order today.
The proper flow of time.
You picked up the Tesseract, breaking reality.
I want you to help us fix it. Why me?
I need your unique Loki perspective.
Do I get a weapon?
Nah.
You really believe in this Loki variant?
Luckily, he believes in himself enough for the both of us.
Why? It is adorable that you think you could possibly manipulate me. I'm 10 steps ahead of you.
You're not big on trust, are you?
You can trust me.
Loki, I've studied almost every moment of your entire life. You've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times.
Why never do it again? I've been pulled through time between the past and the present. Hello? If what I saw is true, there's nothing to stand between this world and utter destruction.
Only one way to find out. A little good old-fashioned legwork. Listen, we have different styles. You're a man of action, which is fine. I take a more slow, deliberate, cerebral approach. It's really goodbye.
It's up to us to save this place.
Is this cracked?
You're good. Whatever we do, we're playing God.
We are gods. But how do you choose who lives and who dies?
Make the hard choice.
It's him.
You better run!
War is on its way.
Come on, you're the god of mischief.
Always have been. Always will be.
So we're finally dedicating an episode to Loki in our MCU marathon in preparation for Avengers Doomsday. I have a feeling Loki is going to play a pretty big role in Doomsday with how season 2 ended. Now, we haven't seen Loki since, 2023? So 3 years ago, we haven't really caught up with Loki yet. And I think he'll play a pivotal role in the Doomsday Secret Wars films. We'll jump into that ending in season 2 for sure when we get to that. But so season 1 initially premiered in June of 2021, and then season 2 premiered in 2023. I believe it was in October. It was like October 6th or 7th or something like that. The budget for it was about $25 million per episode. So one of the more expensive shows out there, but still really worth it. You know, a lot of the special effects that went into it, a lot of the set designs, and I mean, Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston probably had pretty hefty paychecks as well mixed into the budget. So, but about $25 million per episode. To give you kind of a brief synopsis of both seasons in case you haven't seen the show in a while. I haven't seen the show since it came out back in 2021 and 2023. So this was a great, really cool rewatch for me. And I'm definitely higher on this show now. I have a lot more respect for it. Back when it was premiering, I was like, season 1 was pretty good. I wasn't really fully attached to the Loki character at that time. You know, with his death in Avengers Infinity War, I felt, okay, that's the end of Loki. But then he came back in Endgame as a different variant. So I was like, okay, I get it. You know, Loki was a popular character, but it's like, you killed him off in Infinity War. Why don't we just leave it that way? But the way they handled Loki post Endgame, I think, is really, really smart, and they did a really good job. After watching it this time, I appreciate it a lot more, especially season 2. I barely remembered season 2 when it came out. That's a show that I just kind of blew past and just kind of binge watched it when it came out. But rewatching it for the podcast today, I really, really enjoy it. It's one of the best shows that Disney has done so far. It's right up there with Hawkeye and Daredevil Born Again, and some of those other shows like WandaVision as well. I really, really love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. So, but long story, back to the synopsis. So season 1, like I said, kind of picks us up where Avengers Endgame left off, where the Avengers go back in time to get the Infinity Stones. There's a little mishap in 2020 or 2012 New York, where Tony and Ant-Man lose the Tesseract to the 2012 version of Loki. So he takes the Tesseract and he goes and disappears. That is where the TVA comes in and arrests him for violating the sacred timeline and the rules of bouncing between universes. So that's where season 1 picks up. He gets integrated into the TVA, ends up helping Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, who is a agent of the TVA, and they form this unlikely bond and friendship as they go on separate cases and try to figure out what's going on with the sacred timeline and all the branching and things like that. Branching, of course, is where the multiverse comes in, with different realities popping up from the sacred timeline based on different decisions and different actions that people in the sacred timeline make. And then season 2 picks up exactly where season 1 left off, with Sylvie killing He Who Remains, who is a Kang variant. He is responsible for setting up the TVA to oversee the sacred timeline and all that, and try to prevent his other variants from taking over. With his death, that has thrown the sacred timeline into chaos, and all these branches are starting to form. The multiverse is out of control. So Loki must find a way to not only preserve the the existing branches, but also to stop any more branches from coming, because that is just too much for what they call the temporal loom, which is a device that helps contain all the branches or all the realities that have been created, splitting off from the sacred timeline. So they must find another Kang variant to help them repair and increase the throughput, as they call it, on the temporal loom to contain all these realities that have been created because of Sylvie's act in killing He Who Remains. So it's a pretty crazy adventure story. It's really well done, really great cast, and we'll jump into the cast right now, actually. So Tom Hiddleston, like I said, plays Loki. He's been playing Loki since the first Thor movie back in, when did that come out? Like 2010, 2011. So at this point, he's been in the MCU 10 plus years. He's great as Loki. Love it. Can't see anybody else as a Loki character. And this show, and specifically, you really see a lot of character development. He becomes more of a, I wouldn't necessarily say like a hero or a good guy, but he is less of the villain that he's usually portrayed. Is more into that anti-hero segment. But I think by the end of season 2, you could probably call him a hero. You could probably call him an Avenger, honestly, because he sacrifices himself to preserve the sacred timeline and all the branches that came from it. He becomes that temporal loom in that great scene at the end where he's grabbing all the branches. He's using his powers to turn himself into this vessel to help preserve the sacred timeline, as well as all the different realities that have branched off of it, so that everybody can live. Because when you prune a branch, you're killing all those people. You're killing all billions and billions of people on that particular branch. Just like when you prune somebody in the show, which is a really cool effect where you send them to the void, you're basically sending an entire world into the void. And that's where Deadpool and Wolverine comes in. Their entire Fox universe gets pruned and they are sent to the void, this kind of like purgatory like area where Eliath, this big monster cloud purple thing, is eating it up and just basically annihilating them permanently. So, but Tom Hiddleston, his journey through these 2 seasons have really evolved the Loki character and has made him into more of a hero. You can even, like I said, probably call him an Avenger at this point, because he sacrifices himself to preserve all these people in these different branches. So Tom Hiddleston was really, really, really good in this show. I absolutely love him. Owen Wilson as Mobius, his kind of partner, best friend in this whole adventure of the Loki series. Owen Wilson, fantastic actor who I love. It was really exciting when he got brought into the MCU. He's great. I love his, his very heartwarming personality. He's fascinated with jet skis. Well, it turns out he is actually a jet ski salesman on Earth. This version of Mobius is just a variant of what is his name? I can't remember what Mobius's real name was. I'm just drawing a blank. Let me look this up here. Can't believe I drew a blank on that. Mobius real name. Michael. So he was born Michael. Nope, that is, I think they're talking about the Spider-Man of Morbius. No, I want Mobius. Mobius is his name. Interesting. Born as Dawn, and also known as Agent Mobius. Okay. Anyways, I digress. So it turns out the TVA agents, such as Mobius, such as Hunter B-15, such as Renslayer, they're all variants of each other from different parts of Earth. So He Who Remains gathered up all these different variants, kind of brainwashed them, neuralized them, whatever you want to call it, and made them think that the TVA is the only thing that they've ever known, so that they have no attachments to any other reality and they can preserve the sacred timeline unbiasedly, which is smart. If you want a organization like the TVA to preserve something, you got to make sure that the agents inside of them have no attachments, have no bias when they have to make those hard decisions. But Mobius is really a unique character. He is very heartwarming, like I said. He's very smart, very caring, and he wants to do the right thing. And Owen Wilson plays him so well. Next up, we got to talk about Jonathan Majors. We'll talk about him a little bit more throughout the episode, but he plays two characters in here: He Who Remains and Victor Timely, Kang variants. Now, of course, Jonathan Majors, as you know, was originally going to be the big bad of these phases. You know, he was going to be the quote-unquote new Thanos, Kang the Conqueror. But some unfortunate circumstances outside of the Hollywood, you know, with criminal charges, assault charges, all that stuff, Marvel was forced to cut ties with Jonathan Major, which really threw the MCU into chaos while they tried to figure out, okay, what's our next move? We can't bring Jonathan Majors back. He's got all this stuff going on outside of it. What do we do? So that's when they shipped over to Doctor Doom. Now, they weren't really setting this up as well as they could have when Jonathan Majors was casted, but I like the idea. I like setting up this Kang the Conqueror character throughout all these different series, all these different movies throughout the phases in preparation for the new Avengers film, which was going to be titled The Kang Dynasty, and then, of course, do Secret Wars, which is this big multiversal war that happens. But like I said, Jonathan Majors had to be cut tied from Marvel. So this area of the MCU is kind of just was kind of like a blip, so to speak. It was like, it makes you kind of think of, oh, what could have been, and will they return to the Kang character down the road? Probably, because Marvel's going to want to do it the right way. They're going to want an Avengers style movie with Kang and his own universe being built and all that. But focusing just on the Loki version of Jonathan Majors, I really liked him in here. He was a really great surprise when the Loki season 1 came out, and he's like, oh, He Who Remains. They start talking about Kang, and you're like, holy crap, like all the diehard Marvel fans are like, sweet, they're gonna bring on Kang the Conqueror. That makes so much sense to be the new big bad in the MCU after Thanos would be Kang the Conqueror. And then we get Victor Timely, who is another variant in season 2, but kind of in the middle of that, we had another variant in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which we'll talk about a little later on, where we actually get Kang. You know, the villainous Kang. Not that Victor Timely and He Who Remains aren't like villainous. They're just not as villainous as like Kang. Kang is like the OG, the original. These guys are variants. He Who Remains is a little more I don't want to say good or hero like, but he is trying to prevent Kang from corrupting the sacred timeline. So that's why he set up the TVA to protect it and to hold back Kang and all the other variants. Victor Timely is a very sweet and innocent guy who's very smart and just very curious about the world, and he ends up helping Loki and becoming a pivotal character in this series as a Kang variant who wants to preserve everything, similar to how He Who Remains wanted to preserve everything, whereas Kang the Conqueror, it's in his name, wants to conquer everything. So Jonathan Majors did a really, really good job, and it's really unfortunate how it ended up going with Marvel. I think he would have been a really cool big bad in the Avengers movies, but now we're getting Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom instead, which if you're going to do anything other than Kang, I think Doctor Doom is a perfect choice for a big bad. But we really haven't gotten much. It seems like it's very last minute and not really built up. You know, we got a little bit of a glimpse of Doctor Doom at the end of the Fantastic Four film, but that's it. We haven't seen any trailers yet. We haven't seen Robert Downey in his costume. We haven't heard the voice of Doctor Doom. Apparently he has an accent, which makes sense because he's from Eastern Europe, but we got way more with Jonathan Majors, and it makes sense because they were leading up to it. It's just really bad timing of all the crap that he may or may not have done with the charges against him. But Jonathan Majors, regardless, is a really good actor. I liked him as an actor, and he would have been really great as Kang the Conqueror. Loki variant is the next one we'll talk about here briefly. Sylvie is a variant of Loki, and we can debate this for hours and hours and hours, but I'll just touch up on it a little bit because I feel like we need to. The fact that Loki is in love with himself makes sense, but I don't know how that would work because basically Loki, they've set up this romantic relationship between Sylvie and Loki, and it's kind of weird, but it makes sense with the Loki character because he only loves himself. So I think that's really what Marvel is telling you, is that Loki loves himself. So the only like true relationship partner with Loki would be himself, a female version of himself. But she's really great. Sophia Martino, D Martino, did a fantastic job as Sylvie. I really love the Sylvie character. She's really cool. You know, she has had a lot of crap done to her since childhood, and she has this revenge against He Who Remains, who she ends up killing at the end because she feels like that is the only way that she can be set free. But it ends up sending the multiverse into chaos. But she's really great. I love her relationship with her chemistry on screen with Tom Hiddleston. They were great together. All those episodes of them traveling from universe to universe was really, really fun. And then kind of speeding through the rest of the cast here before we get into all the categories. Hunter 15, one of the TVA agents. She's really cool in here. She kind of is in a tough spot because she's like Mobius. She's known the TVA most of her life. She's dedicated to it. But eventually they get her to realize that, hey, this isn't, we can be better. And she becomes a character that I end up really liking. Renslayer, not a big fan of Renslayer. I think they could have did something differently with her. She was kind of the antagonist in the second season, but it was kind of a really not so well written and put together character. She ended up having some sort of friendship with He Who Remains, so they ended up making her an antagonist along with Miss Minutes, which is this very powerful AI that I think in the comics she is like a big bad, so to speak. She's like one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe, but she's just kind of this animated clock popping in and out and got this really Southern Belle accent. But eventually she ends up getting reprogrammed to becoming good, I think. But I think we could see Miss Minutes later on in the MCU. Maybe somebody corrupts her and she becomes like a really big bad. Kind of like I've kind of put her into the vein of like Ultron, so to speak. So we could be getting more. I think we could have gotten more from her for sure. And then OB, played by Kiwi Kwan, who was fantastic. He really wanted to be part of the MCU when he came back to acting. And him as OB was really fun. I love seeing him on screen. He brings a lot of charisma, a lot of enjoyment and entertainment and everything that he does. He's really smart. He talks really fast. He's really dorky. And I just really, really love Kiwi Kwan. He's fantastic as OB. And then Casey, another, not really like a TVA agent, but more of like an office worker. But he's part of the team as well. And he helps try to save the temporal loom in season 2. He gets a lot more to do in season 2 than he does season 1. And he kind of becomes a full-fledged member of this TVA team that tries to preserve the sacred timeline and all the branches that came out of it. So that wraps up the team there. Let's get into the iconic scenes. This was tough because it's 2 full seasons of show. So it's hard to break this down into 5 or 6 really good scenes. But I think I got a couple nominees here, and then I'll give you what I think is the most iconic scene. Reminder, when I say iconic scenes, this is a scene that you think of when you hear the title Loki. So first up, Loki going through the TVA processing. Very first part of season 1 where he's going through fingerprinting, scans. You get that really cool moment where they laser off all of his clothes and you have naked Tom Hiddleston on screen. Everybody lost their mind when that came on. You have that really cool scene where they have every single word that he has said in his entire life. And as he's speaking in that room, more papers are printing off. And he's like, this is ridiculous. So then he just shuts up finally and signs this big stack of papers. It's a really fun scene as you go see through the processing of TVA when they pick up somebody that has violated the sacred timeline or the rules set forth for the TVA. Really, really awesome scene. Loki fighting Lokis and the Void. So eventually Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie get pruned and sent to the Void towards the end of season 1. And we get to meet a whole bunch of Lokis. You get to see President Loki, the classic Loki in his yellow and green costume. You meet an alligator Loki, a little kid Loki, who's the king of Asgard. All these different variants of Loki that end up in the Void at some point. They all start fighting with each other, and that's when the original Loki, Tom Hiddleston's like, all right, forget it. You guys are useless. That was a fun scene there. Sylvie killing He Who Remains. I really like this scene for Jonathan Majors' performance. He's really good in there. He's really quirky, really villainous, so to speak, but you can tell that he truly believes what he is doing is for the greater good. And that's why I really think that Jonathan Majors would have been a really fascinating Kang in an Avengers movie, because of this performance here that he does in this scene at the end of season 1 as He Who Remains. Got me really, really excited. And he's the best part of Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, which I'll talk about a lot in that review episode. But this scene in particular is one of my favorites because of the performance by Jonathan Majors. Then we get into season 2 here. Loki time slipping in various scenes throughout the season is really cool. I love the effect. It looks very painful and very scary for Loki. So I love the effects of his body kind of shifting, and then he disappears into different times. We also have Victor finally increasing the temporal loom capacity. Now, this entire sequence is crazy because that first initial scene where at the beginning of the show where they bring Victor in, they hype him up, it's time to be brave. And within seconds, he gets destroyed from all the radiation from the temporal loom and all the universes. But as they go on, Loki realizes that they need to start at a different point in time so that they can give Victor enough time and enough ability to get the device shot into the temporal loom to increase the rings on it. So that's really cool to see Jonathan Majors, this variant of Kang, be a hero, so to speak. So I really like that scene. And then Loki becoming the temporal loom at the very end of the show is a really awesome moment for the character, really visually pleasing. And I think of that all the time with him, with all the green, him touching the different branches of the timeline turning green. And you get that cool wide shot at the end of the show where he is now the temporal loom in the middle of that big giant cloud. Just a really cool, visually pleasing scene. So I think that most iconic scene for me has got to be the He Who Remains scene where they meet him for the first time. He's explaining his reasoning of establishing the TVA, what happens if you kill me, things like that. I automatically go to that scene at the end of the season 1 when I hear Loki. In the comments below, tell me your iconic scene from the Loki show. I'm very curious to see what you guys think is the most iconic scene of Loki. Next up, we got the let's fucking go moments of Loki. This was a little tougher. I didn't really have a whole lot of let's fucking go moments in Loki, so I had to really grasp here, but I got 3 of them here. And I'll tell you which one I think is the most exciting. President Loki and more Loki showing up. You got that scene where Loki is sick of their bull crap, and he goes up the escape hatch, and then you have all those Lokis looking around him, and you see President Loki, which is a really awesome thing that they did in here. Very iconic variant of Loki from the comics, if you're not aware. So that was I was like, yeah, let's fucking go. We got more Lokis to interact with Loki. It's really cool. Next, we got Victor timely telling himself time to be brave. Right when he's ready to go out there. And you're like, yeah, let's fucking go, Victor. Let's save the multiverse. Really, really cool. And then Loki becoming the temporal loom. It's like, holy shit, let's fucking go. Loki is becoming a hero. He's going to save the multiverse. He's going to sacrifice himself. And it took him 2 seasons to realize his glorious purpose is to preserve the multiverse. It was really, really cool. And I think the let's fucking go moment is that end scene in season 2 with Loki becoming the temporal loom. It's like, let's fucking go. Let's make Loki a hero. Let's see this character arc happen. Let's see the character evolve from a villain in the first Thor movie to wanting to kill his own brother to now saving the entire multiverse and sacrificing himself. It's really, really cool. Favorite quotes. I'm going to run through these ones here. Most of them are from Loki because it is a Loki show. I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose. Victor Timely, time to be brave. Some more from Loki. I know what God I need to be for you, for all of us. Love is a dagger. You're all variants when he realizes that everyone's a variant. He's trying to convince everyone in the TVA that they are variants. And then Mobius, existence is chaos. So a few quotes there. Let's dive into some fun facts before we wrap up today's review. Rather than read Marvel Comics to prepare for the role of Agent Mobius, Owen Wilson instead had Tom Hiddleston explain the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe to him. Too bad I didn't have Michael Pena there to just recap the entire MCU, which I really, really need right now. The animated mascot Miss Minutes is inspired by the animated character Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park. Pretty obvious there. The series was originally meant to follow Loki popping up throughout human history as an unlikely influence on historical events, which they kind of do. I think it's in season 1 when they're trying to find the Loki variant that is responsible for pruning all of these universes, hence Sylvie. They end up going into like Pompeii or Pompeii and things like that. So they do kind of touch on it a little bit because Sylvie is bouncing from catastrophic events and that's where she's hiding. So they kind of mix that in there, but that would have been pretty cool if they would have went to like more like the Titanic sinking, like Pompeii, for example, things like that. That would have been pretty cool. The Time Variance Authority headquarters was inspired by the Atlanta Marriott Marquis Hotel, a 50-story building with a distinctive atrium chamber that spans the whole length of the building and has elevator and bridges. It kind of did look like a hotel, which was pretty cool. Miss Minutes was originally conceived as having more of a Siri-like voice before Kate Heron decided that her Southern Belle accent was more friendly and interesting. I mean, it was more friendly and interesting, but I mean, I would have been fine with the Suri-like voice too. Owen Wilson compared Mobius's relationship with Loki to the main character relationships in the comedies 48 Hours, Catch Me If You Can, and Good Will Hunting. You definitely see some 48 Hours, Catch Me If You Can action in here, and a little bit of Good Will Hunting, but more so I think 48 Hours and Catch Me If You Can. And then lastly, season 2 features the final appearance of Jonathan Majors in the MCU as he was fired by Marvel Studios and Disney in December 2023 following his indictment in assault charges, I believe, on his girlfriend at the time. So yes, Loki is a really good show. I definitely have more praise and more appreciation for it. I think that we will be getting more Loki, especially in these next 2 Avengers films. I hope we get a season 3 of Loki. That'd be really cool. I guess we'll see what they do with him going forward. But right now, he is the piece that is keeping the whole multiverse together as of right now. So, but it has been a few years since we've even heard of Loki. So it's going to be very interesting with Chris Hemsworth coming back as Thor if we get him and Loki on screen together. But you got to remember, this is the 2012 version of Loki. So it's going to be very interesting if they do. But yeah, definitely check out Loki on Disney Plus today. 2 seasons. Hopefully they do a 3rd season, and we'll see what they do with him in the Avengers movie. Let's wrap everything up like we always do with the rankings. And we got quite a list here because we're going to do both seasons together. So first up, we'll do the MCU ranking for season 1 and season 2. So we're going to separate them for each of the 3 categories here. So season 1, I have at 30th, and at season 2, I got at 1 spot above at 29th. I kind of lumped these 2 together in the ranking list here, but I do like to separate the seasons of these shows because they are different. Different quality, different stories they're telling, but they're all connected together nonetheless. So looking at what's around it, I got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness slightly above it at 28. Werewolf by Night, 27. Thor, Love and Thunder at 26. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special at 25. Right below it, 31. Avengers Age of Ultron. 32. Black Widow, which we'll be talking about next week. 33. Iron Man 3. 34. Doctor Strange. And 35. Iron Man 2. So kind of like really right in the middle. But I really do like it. Much more appreciation for it. Especially season 2. I like season 2 slightly better than season 1, but again, they're kind of lumped together, telling the same story. But that is where they are in the ranking. Villain scale. Reminder, villain scale. This is where we rate the villain of the MCU project with Thanos heads. So we talked about the motivation of the villain, the performance by the actor, and the costume. So season 1. Season 1's a little tricky because we don't really get to see the villain until the very end of the show. He Who Remains, played by Jonathan Majors. I've already talked about him at length already, but fantastic. I love his performance, but I'm only giving him 3 Thanos heads because he's in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the show. If he would have been like throughout the season, I would have probably jumped up to 4 Thanos heads. But the fact that he was in a very, very small portion And it was kind of confusing if he was even a villain, because Sylvie was kind of the antagonist too throughout the show. But then they kind of pivoted to He Who Remains. But they also have Renslayer. So it's just a lot of really, like, kind of a villain, kind of just an antagonist, kind of an anti-hero. So there really wasn't like no distinct villain in this show. That's why you'll see these two villains in the seasons are a bit lower than what they could have. But if they would have been more established as the villain, I probably would have given him 4 Thanos, because I love the performance. I love the costuming, like the purple outfit that looks similar to what the Kang the Conqueror will wear, but it looks more reserved, I guess. More like looks like a prophet almost, or a monk. But I do like the costuming. I love the performance for Jonathan Majors, even though it was a very small amount of screen time. The motivation, he thinks that he's right. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He thinks he's protecting the sacred timeline from Kang. So that's why he makes the ultimate decisions. That's why he knows what's going to happen before it happens. He thinks he's right, which every villain thinks that they're right. But the great villains are written well. Like Thanos thinks he's doing the right thing, which there actually can be an argument that maybe Thanos had a point. Same thing with He Who Remains. Maybe he has a point. Maybe he's protecting us, protecting the characters in the show from something worse than him. So, but I'm getting He Who Remains 3 Thanos heads. Season 2, this was even more wonky in the villain department. Like, He Who Remains shows up again at the end, but you also have Renslayer, Miss Minutes, that are kind of the antagonists too. But I'm going to stick with Renslayer and Miss Minutes because they seem to be the most consistent antagonists throughout the season. I'm giving them 2 Thanos heads because I don't think Renslayer was written as well as she could have. The performance was okay. Costuming was okay. Nothing too out there. Miss Minutes probably could have been written more. She kind of showed her villain side too more. But I'm giving them 2 Thanos heads just because it was really not really distinct on who was the villain and who was the main antagonist, and it's just all over the place villain wise. So you can even argue that there is no villain in the show, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. But the category, we have to have a villain. So 2 Thanos heads for Renslayer and Miss Minutes in season 2 of Loki. Then the popcorn rating. This is kind of cheating, but I'm going to give them both the same rating, 4 popcorns. I really, really like it, Loki. Again, the villain thing really holds it back from being a 5 or golden. But I love the little bit of action in there. I love the chemistry between all the characters. I love the character development with Loki and with Mobius and with Sylvie. Especially Loki, him shifting into more of a hero role at the end of season 2. I really like that from a writing standpoint. Tom Hiddleston's performance was fantastic. I really enjoyed Owen Wilson's performance. I enjoyed Jonathan Majors for the little bit of time that he has. You know, the quirky Victor Timely was very entertaining. Looked kind of like an Einstein-like character, which was cool. But yeah, I'm giving seasons 1 and 2 4 popcorns. So check out Loki on Disney Plus right now to kind of get ready for Avengers Doomsday, because I got to imagine Loki's going to pop up in there at some point. Maybe we'll get a cool showdown between Loki and Doctor Doom. But yeah, check that out today. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Next week, we'll do Black Widow. So we'll get back into the movies of the MCU. And then after that, I think we're going to do a big Daredevil Punisher episode. So Daredevil Born Again Season 2 has wrapped up. So we're going to talk about that one. We're going to talk about Daredevil Born Again Season 1. So we'll do a rewatch of that. And then we also have the Punisher special coming out on May 12th. So we'll lump that in there too. So we'll do a Daredevil Born Again plus Punisher special episode. It's going to be a big Daredevil episode. Very excited about that. And then we'll get into more of the Phase 4 afterwards. But yeah, so we have Black Widow coming up. We've got the Michael Jackson Michael movie review coming out this weekend as well. That'll probably drop tomorrow. And we'll get to the Mortal Kombat 2 review episode, which will drop next week as well with Black Widow. So plenty of content coming your way for cinematic reviews. Check out all the previous episodes that we've done and check out the other Quantum Podcast content from the End Zone Report and the Quantum Flash gaming channel, which you can find both on YouTube today. So with that, enjoy your weekend. Go out and see Mortal Kombat 2 today. It's awesome. If you are a Mortal Kombat fan, you're going to absolutely love this movie. I guarantee you that. So go ahead and check that out. We will see you all next time on Cinematic Reviews.